about the indie games.
Sure.
I'm deciding if it's my least favorite or my favorite. I don't know, but I have strong feelings about it.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. It is your host with the toast, Right Toast, here with a very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is John from the channel FNAF, FUHNAFF. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Thanks for being here. I'm super hyped. So we, as always, I forget things, but we have a topic for today, so we're going to start with that. And the topic is what happened in between Security Breach and Ruin.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the general information before we get too into it. Obviously, if you're listening to a niche Freddy Fazbear podcast, you probably know what I'm talking about here. But just in case you stumbled drunkenly into this thing, we are talking about the most recent game in the franchise, Freddy Fazbear's Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, and its DLC Ruin. There is a time gap between the main game and the DLC. It's not clear exactly how long.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clear what happens in between that time gap. And there's a lot of speculation going on. So I thought it'd be pretty good to pick each other's brain and see if we can come to some kind of an agreement.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to put the spotlight on you.
Oh.
And I'm going to just... I've got some thoughts on it, but I'm curious to see, before I say my thoughts that I already have on it, what is your current, I guess, best guess for what takes place between Security Breach and Ruin?
I think the most interesting thing to me is the time gap. It's hard. It's been really hard for me to settle on like how long it was between the games, because the Pizzaplex is literally like destroyed, like and it's not, it's like destroyed and abandoned. Like if there was just an earthquake, you would see the merch from the merch shop all over the floor and stuff, but it's destroyed and abandoned. There's stuff all over the walls, spray paint, stuff like that. So I want to say it's been years, but then you listen to Gregory's voice and you look at the age of Cassie, which I don't know how old do you think Cassie is? No idea.
So there's the one line that I got into trouble for incorrectly understanding, and there's Roxy's line that was like, I remember your birthday, it was the 11th,
right? That's
and
what
I was like, oh, it was her 11th birthday.
That's how I took it too.
Apparently the line might have been it was on the 11th.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yes,
so
I think
in
that
that
was it.
case, but I
Right.
if I shoot from the hip, I'd guess like 10 to 13. That'd be my immediate guess.
Right. I don't know. My gut is telling
Maybe
me like,
younger. I don't know.
my gut is telling me like 10. But like,
Yeah.
it feels like it's been like at least like a few years since Security Breach. But like, it's really messed up. Like the mall's really messed up. So I don't know. But then you listen to Gregory's voice and you're like, did he grow up at all?
Yeah, especially because since he's a kid, right?
Right.
Like if he was already like a teenager or adult, we couldn't use that. But
Right.
if you're like 8
Right.
and 3 years go by, you will be drastically different.
That's a
in
lot of
voice and
time.
everything
Yeah,
else.
it's confusing. And then you go into like, oh, is Gregory a robot? And blah 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 blah. And then how long? Like, where is he? And I don't know. It's like, it's tough. It's tough.
The time there is interesting. I would hesitate to say years. I think maybe a year.
Yeah.
Like I would probably cap it out at a year. Just where I'm at, I think part of the reason why the kind of decay of that building has been expedited is the animatronics inside of it.
Really?
Because I think a big majority of it, like I don't think it's just an earthquake, if an earthquake even happened, right? I think the main collapse is blob related, if I had to guess. Especially because we see the tunnels leading from the pizzeria. So I see it as it tried to tunnel out. It's already on a sinkhole. Things started collapsing. Where I'm at currently is I think that a couple things and ending adjacent things happened at the end of Security Breach.
Mhm.
But I definitely think that the first thing that happens at the very end of Security Breach, like the canon ending to Security Breach,
Mhm.
is the Princess Quest ending. I think that makes the most sense
Yes.
with what we have.
I think you deserve some credit because you were the first person, or at least YouTuber or whatever maybe, that I heard say that that was the canon ending. And I remember saying, I don't think so. Because it was like,
I was almost very petty. I don't think I was the first. I don't know.
I mean,
but
I'm sure there
know,
was someone out there that said
Sure.
it, but you were the first person that really stuck to that I saw, at least.
I went through, I was almost very petty because in my most recent video, I talk about the endings.
Mhm.
And I bring up that like I got a little bit of heat
I remember.
for insisting.
I remember.
I have a folder. I went through and I searched Burn Trap Canon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went 4 months back.
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed a couple, obviously like anonymous, and I was going to grab a couple comments to put on the screen that were just like, you idiot, Burn Trap's obviously canon.
Right.
And then I was going to put those on there. I
Right.
didn't. I was almost.
Right.
But the thing is, if Princess Quest is canon, then I don't know if that necessarily destroys Glitch Trap in any way,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think it isolates it from what it was currently infecting, a la Vanessa and the animatronics.
Yeah. Yeah, I think go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say to finish that and then to go back to the decay of the Pizzaplex.
Yeah.
If we have these animatronics that have been controlled by this Glitch Trap, Mimic One, whatever you call it at this point, virus program,
Mm-hmm.
they get destroyed, the programming gets messed with, and then suddenly that program is out of them.
Yeah.
I see them going on a rampage, especially ones like Monty or Roxy without her eyes.
Now that
I see them just start rampaging.
They like wake up and they're like, what happened?
What's going on?
Yeah.
I'm just going to start tearing through things. I got to find something.
Yeah.
Because if you look at especially like the opening areas, yes, there's collapse, but there's like claw marks. There's destroyed things that wouldn't have been affected by a collapse. And I think that goes into that.
Really?
Well,
In like
I mean, with
you mean in
right
like
before-
Monty Golf?
Monty Golf, but even like right before you go to Monty Golf, right before that jump scare, you see that staff bot with the claw marks down its chest, which are just like the ones we see around Monty and Security Breach.
Right. And there was a lot of those staff bots that were just torn up, and we still don't understand why. But yeah, interesting.
So I think that could have expedited the visual decay of the Pizzaplex.
Right. I mean, to be fair, Roxy is pretty much the same as she was in Security Breach. She literally says the same things, like, "Where are my
If
eyes?"
anything, she's like
she's like stuck in time. Actually, like if years have gone by, she's still running around being like, "Gregory, get me back my eyes." She thinks Cassie's Gregory.
Yeah, no, and it's also like she also seems almost better. Like, especially with Cassie's recognition.
Yeah.
Now, that could be... She could have always been like that, but it could be Gregory specifically that is getting her like that. Like, maybe if any other kid, even in Security Breach, was there, she would have been on that programming.
Right.
But as far as we're aware, that's the first, like, lucid statement we get from Roxy. Is like, oh, Cassie, sorry, error, and, like, backs off.
Right. Huh.
And that could also be... Glitch Trap's influence being removed via Princess Quest.
Yeah. I think...
but I guess I'll throw it to you.
Oh, God.
What ending of Security Breach are you banking on right now?
None of them. None of them. And I think that is my, like, honest answer. I really think none of them happened. And I think the prototype...
So, I mean, the question that is begged is, what do you think happened?
I think a piece of all of them happened, kind of.
Okay.
I think it sounds insane, but I think the Princess Quest ending did happen, but not how we saw it in Security Breach. And I think the prototype on Freddy's foot kind of nails that for me, or whatever the phrase is for that for me.
Sure.
That prototype on his foot, and the fact that there's a present in him that is a different color than the present in Security Breach tells me that they wanted that Freddy to not be the same Freddy as the one in base game. Like that feels like very clear storytelling to me. It's like, okay, this is obviously not the Freddy that we blah 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 with in Security Breach. So
I think the prototype thing is really a nail in my side, because I so desperately wanted to be the same Freddy to have any cohesion between these games.
Oh yeah.
And I admit, like, straight up, the prototype stamp and the present are weird and somewhat damning.
It just feels
like,
clear
if I
as
can't
day.
say it's just a cool redesign,
Right.
but like I could say that about anything.
Right.
Like,
Right. I mean, I had
how much we see Freddy's feet.
Sorry, go ahead. What'd you say?
I was gonna say, especially with how much we see Freddy's feet in the base game. If
Right.
it was like any other animatronic, you'd be like, oh, we just didn't get to see it.
Right.
But like, you stare at his feet like 4 times in that game.
Right. And the fact that like that same goes for Roxy. Like her endoskeleton looks different. Is that a redesign, or is that Steelwool trying to tell us something that like maybe everything didn't happen as we saw it in Security Breach? But then you also don't get the comic book page for the Princess Quest ending. So it's like, that's implying that the Princess Quest ending did happen in real life, but then the prototype, and it's like, it's
But
just
then
a
you
never
also
ending.
get the comic book page of the Burn Trap ending with I guess with Tangle on it.
Right.
And we see Tangle at the beginning of the DLC.
Right. So it's like, that's what I mean by like pieces of the endings happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously Burn Trap could be in Tangle, I guess. It could have actually swallowed him up, and the Mimic is just something different. I don't know about that, but
yeah,
that's what I mean
I'm
by
of
like
two minds with that.
pieces of the endings happened.
Sure. I think where I'm at, I think the majority of Princess Quest happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about Gregory's voice lines at the end of the game, where he's like, if we leave now, kids will keep disappearing. So that implies Gregory knows and cares about this.
Right.
So in the Princess Quest ending, him, Vanessa, and Freddy's head get out of there. And now we have a kid who cares about kids going missing.
Right.
Someone who would know a lot about what was going on and know that there's something else more important happening.
Right.
And Freddy's head is there.
Right.
So I could see the 3 of them going back before Ruin. And I think Gregory's backpack backs that up as well. The one we see outside of the Mimic's lair.
Yeah.
So where I'm currently at, I think the majority of Princess Quest happens. Then they go, okay, Vanessa's like, hey, I'm not the only thing in there.
Right.
Something was taking over my mind. Possibly something was taking over your mind.
Right.
You know?
Right.
If we are to go into GGY territory.
Right.
That thing is in the basement. We should do something about it.
Right.
And then the Burn Trap ending couldn't happen at that point, but something very similar to it could have.
Yeah.
What I see the Burn Trap ending as is the what if scenario if Gregory went there by himself.
Ooh.
Versus what would have happened if he went down there with Freddy's head and Vanessa.
Ooh. So you think he wouldn't have seen the Mimic, he would have saw Burn Trap?
I think he would have saw Burn Trap, and then it gets into Burn Trap and the Mimic, right?
Yeah.
I think they're 2 different things.
Oh, okay.
And I know that's spicy. It's not narratively satisfying to have these 2 completely separate things that are very similar in the same location.
Yeah.
If they're not the same, if they are the same thing, the only way I see that working is the Mimic was what was used to create Burn Trap, right? They take the corpse of William Afton and the Mimic puts on that corpse.
Yeah.
And then you have like Vanny or something like stitch it together and try to make that work.
Right.
Then the Burn Trap ending or some assimilation of it happens where Tangle sees that, takes Burn Trap.
Right.
In that process, the Tangle, I think, is mostly agony at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the design of it and the way it acts and all that.
I could agree with
so
that. So
if it has Burn Trap, which is this endoskeleton covered in whatever William Afton still is at that point, which would probably primarily be agony.
Right.
The only way I see Burn Trap and the Mimic being the same thing is if it literally scoops him up, scrapes off all the agony bits, and spits out an endoskeleton.
Right. Right.
But that's kind of weird.
Or the gas that comes out of the chamber is the nightmare gas or whatever.
We have a question about nightmare gas later. Don't you
okay,
worry.
never mind.
Oh, no,
Lord.
No, it's not about this specifically. I just, you're right that could be gas. Someone actually brought up on my stream last night in the Leave ending, when you just the bad ending where you just straight
The
up leave
gas
front
in the
door.
alleyway.
The alleyway looks like it has gas. I think it's City Steam.
Yeah, that's City Steam. I think
it's got to be City Steam, but it is green.
Oh, come on.
But is that like a stylized comic book thing?
Yes.
Or is it nightmare gas and all of this is a test chamber?
Oh no.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of that spoilers for new Tales book. I don't know when
Didophobia spoilers.
it's like next week, so whatever.
It's
it'll
probably be out like 3 days after the podcast is up. So wait 4 days and come back.
Hold on 1 second.
I still need to go to Barnes & Noble because I think it'll have it early too. Mine usually has it about a week early.
There you go.
There it is. The dogs are on the cover.
But the dogs, I'll cover.
Thank you.
So this story, the kid escapes mall, and then Vanny comes and says, "Nope, come back, don't leave." Reminds me of that story. And spoilers.
God, yeah,
I don't know.
No, it's unfortunately. I don't think it's true. It is unfortunately possible.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah. I would say that. Yeah.
Speaking of nightmare gas.
Oh god.
Talking about ruin.
Oh god.
And even more connections there.
Oh god.
This is a little off a topic, but
No.
it's close.
Go ahead.
The ending of the Scooper ending of Ruin.
Oh, poop.
Do you think that's the original Scooper? Or do you think it's the where I'm at? I unironically think that whole area with the elevator and the Scooper is straight up the sister location, without the effects of nightmare gas.
So no illusion, like that is the
No illusion.
location.
That is what you're seeing. But what we've seen before.
Oh yes, I remember. I watched
was
that.
under the effects of nightmare gas. That's where I'm at. And I know that kind of sucks narratively, but that is where I'm at. I feel like 90% of FNAF theories right now are, hey, this kind of sucks, but it might be true.
Right. I mean, that could also fall under like what we saw of the sister location bunker was just an indie game made by an indie developer.
God.
His interpretation of like, oh, what would an underground bunker look like? Oh, it'd probably be very high tech and blah blah. So
especially with Help Wanted. Help Wanted pretty much confirmed Sister Location was an indie game.
Right. And also, we're not gonna get into this, but didn't the person who made the indie games and the Tales games not even finish the fourth one? But somehow we have 6 of them. Anyways, not gonna talk about that.
Straight up 6, yeah.
Anyways, is the Scooper and Sister Location? No.
That's fair.
I mean, I just like.
I think it's more likely to not be, right?
I think my gut is telling me someone found out about what Afton was doing, and who worked at the Pizzaplex or something, and wanted to do that again with themselves or something. Like something tells me that someone. But also there's the Pizzaplex logos on all of the stuff down there. So it's like, why would this one person put all the logos on? It's just like something is telling me that someone was inspired by what Afton was doing and was like, I want to do that now.
Oh god.
Because like, who else is it? Is it the Mimic? Did the Mimic build a scooper and like do all this? Like who, if
you don't understand.
What? Oh god.
We have a father character we know very little about, whose daughter could be a robot.
Stay tuned for my next video. Anyways.
Oh no. Well, because with Cassie, right? In Ruin, she rides the log flume. She's like, that log flume was so much fun.
Yep.
The log flume that was never open to the public for safety reasons.
Yeah.
God. If someone's wanting to follow William's footsteps.
Yeah. I have this fear, because maybe not a lot of people, but one of my thoughts was like, oh, Cassie is this was when the trailers were coming out. Cassie's a Charlie bot, blah 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 blah, green nail polish. Oops, sorry, did you hear that? Never mind. My computer went off. But Charlie bot and Henry and blah blah blah. And my biggest fear is like, not biggest fear, but like, that Steel Wool will just be like, really dig into, those were just indie games. these are the real characters. Edwin is actually like Matt talked about this on some GT Live, but Edwin is the real life version of Henry and blah, blah, blah. Like I'm so
It'd
scared.
be like an inversion of an inversion.
Yeah, they're like, oh, nothing in the games actually happened. Those were just fake names. That's why like Gregory sounds like Sammy and Charlie sounds like Cassie, and it's blah, 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 blah. I don't know.
I see that.
I hope that I don't think that will happen, but that's I don't know.
Someone in my comments did point out another parallel. So this is very loosey goosey, but it's interesting to think about. It wasn't like these people are these people. It was just like an interesting connection.
Yeah.
If you look at Cassie and Gregory, they do make a decent fit for the crying child and Elizabeth. Where there are already Gregory and crying child connections, just design wise, really.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the like odd bits about Cassie can be attached to Elizabeth somewhat neatly.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like, this probably doesn't mean anything, but it's interesting to note. Like, it's like, put a pin in that. Maybe 3 games from now, it'll mean something.
Right. It's interesting that like robot kids and robot people are such a big thing in the books, in every single series of FNAF books.
Yeah.
But people are still in such denial that it could show up in the games. It kind of like, blows my mind.
One of the biggest themes in the books is a robot trying to become a human.
Right.
Like nearly every book, one of the stories is about that.
Right. Exactly. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about, so I guess back to connections between Security Breach and Ruin.
Yeah.
So the endings, maybe some of the endings happen. I think we both agree the entirety of any of those endings does not line up.
Yes.
Like no matter if you pick one of those endings completely, it does not make its way to Ruin.
Yeah.
Without something else happening.
Yeah, but the fact that Freddy doesn't have a head and he has the same damage as he does in the Princess Quest ending in Security Breach, it's just like annoying. It's like really like
because he's got the same chest damage. Even.
Right. It's
like at first I was like, oh, they made it. It's a mouth. That's not the same damage. If you look at it, it kind of already looked like a mouth when he was damaged in Princess Quest.
Right.
I also do think it's interesting to note. One of the biggest arguments for Burn Trap was that it's the only ending with a cutscene.
Yeah, that's BS.
That's BS. But also, both the good and bad Vanny ending starts with a custom cutscene.
Right.
So I could see those cutscenes did happen, but maybe the context around them had changed.
Right.
So like maybe that cutscene happens, then something happens like Princess Quest, but something else happens before and after.
Right.
And then at some point, Burn Trap is scooped up by Tangle and Freddy and Gregory have to run away.
Right.
But the context is different.
Right. Question. Kind of random.
Yeah.
I'm so curious what your thoughts are. The name that is blurred out at the end of Ruin. My friend.
Gregory's friend.
Who do you think that is?
So immediately I was like, oh yeah, it's Vanessa. But then it's like, why would they censor that?
Right.
Because it would be like part of me is like, okay, maybe they just don't want to give it away. But like, it's so clearly supposed to be Vanessa.
Right.
And like, it's not even really a secret because Vanessa, like Freddy straight up is like Vanny and Vanessa. That can't be an accident or whatever. Like the game straight up tells you like, hey, Vanny is Vanessa.
Right.
So like I guess like maybe if it is Vanessa, were they worried it would give away the Security Breach ending? But they already kind of showed their hand with that.
Oh, true.
It really comes down to if it's not Vanessa, who the hell would it be?
Right. I think you actually nailed it on the head. I think it would give away the ending of Security Breach too much. It's just another one of those things that's like, why?
You didn't have to. Why? You didn't have to.
I think it's probably Vanessa. Yeah.
Because if it's not Vanessa and it's not Freddy,
then
because it also hides the pronoun. It hides the name and the pronoun.
Right.
It's follow instructions.
Right. The thing.
So he said, "I've got plans to the building. I can tell you how to get out of there." We're running through caves.
What? Doesn't his friend have plans to the building?
Yeah. His friend has, like, my friend has the building plans, follow their instructions or whatever.
And then Gregory just keeps talking.
And then Gregory just keeps talking and leads you through a cave system.
Gregory is a crying child robot, and then the person who keeps talking is the other crying child robot.
True. Okay, so part of me always thought that the Mimic took over halfway on that walkie-talkie conversation. Like, I always thought that in the elevator, that mic feedback was the Mimic retaking control.
Right.
It might all be the Mimic.
Why,
like, I hate to say that.
Why would the Mimic tell her where to go? That is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Like, instead of going to the dead end.
Why would you not just say go left and then catch her?
Right.
And it wouldn't even be like, oh, so she can open the elevator thing. I'm sure if he has a Faz wrench, the Mimic seems capable enough to learn how to use it.
Right.
Like,
and I think the one thing that's like very apparent is that there's a lot of story to tell still. And I don't, it's like, is this all going to be in Help Wanted 2? It's like,
I don't know. Because a comment, I brought this up last podcast too. A comment had said, Ruin feels like act 2 of a 3-act story.
No, you said that on your podcast with Dan.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, it's like,
yeah,
but I feel like there's like the elevator at the end of Ruin goes up. It's going up the whole time, the whole speech. And then Gregory or Mimic makes it go back down to where it started. So as far as the story goes, Cassie is now with the Mimic. Like,
yeah, Cassie's still down there. In each ending, Cassie stays in that cave.
Yes. And we have,
like, even in the scooper where like the Mimic seems to have been defeated in some way, she's still in the cave.
Right. And we have Roxy saying Cassie, and it's the same voice line we heard earlier from Cassie, which tells me it's the Mimic pretending to be Roxy. Or yeah, you get the point. It's just like,
and that could happen in all 3 endings too, because with the scooper ending, the we went out of bounds. The Mimic is not in the costume anymore.
Right.
The costume is left on the ground.
Right.
So the Mimic could just run off, come back as Roxy's voice. The same thing happens with the Brazil ending. At that point, she's already vanified. You know, they really yassified my Cassie. Like, she's done now.
Jeez. Oh God. It's the Brazil ending. Why do you think
the Brazil ending is
daycare
just
music?
Lost.
The daycare music.
I think daycare music because it's a reference to Balloon World.
Or, remember, there was a collectible that said she used to spend a lot of time in the daycare and had a lot of fun in the daycare.
True. It could just be like a happy place.
So,
music.
yes. So it's like her
because she did
place.
really like the daycare.
Yeah. I actually just put that together.
I could see that. No, that's a good point. Because there's also the balloons in the background and everything.
Right.
I still think if we get this like carnival game,
right,
it's going to be Cassie going in her like own mind cage.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's going to be all
it might
about
start with that shot and then just pan down to like a carnival.
I agree. Like,
and that kind of also goes to your most recent video too, talking about like that carnival, if the Mimic has created it, could be very much based on what it would have been at the time.
Oh, for sure. So that tells me, like, what if the Brazil ending is probably the canon one?
I'm pretty sure the Brazil ending is canon.
I trust you because last time you got it right.
Hey, I got Princess. I got one.
And honestly, that was the ending that people were like, "There's no way. There's no way it'd be the good ending."
Well, because on a face value, I totally get it. Because it's like, wait, but then Vanny's already not a villain anymore.
Yeah, it's like
I'm like, yeah, that does kind of suck. But at least we have Vanessa still.
Right. It's like the Princess Quending's like quest ending is like, story's over. They won.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I guess they never knew about Burn Trap in the basement, and that's it.
Yeah.
God, I would not be surprised.
Well, the thing about the Brazil ending, if the Mimic gets a hold of Cassie, the Brazil ending can happen at any point. Like, bring Cassie to that cutout, put the mask on her.
Right.
Done.
Right.
Like.
Right. Oh, God.
Oh, man.
Oh, God. That reminds me of that one story, Tiger Rock, where it's like you don't know if you're in the real world or if you're in the VR world and blah blah blah. Yeah, I don't know.
Someone actually, we were talking about this on the theory stream yesterday. Someone had brought up, they think that all of Ruin is affected by AR/VR.
I agree.
And I think that's probably the easiest way to explain why the AR mask allows you to pass through things, because we only have to do that after we get the occipital transponder or whatever that thing in the back of her skull is that
Right.
like allows Helpy to be in her vision.
Right.
And the reason we can't walk through it is just because it's in her vision. They
Right.
have to make it a game. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right, right. No,
So if that's true, anything we see in Ruin could be created.
oh, I agree. And I think it's I said this yesterday. You did a live stream where you're forgiving theory sins, and the Security Breach and Ruin are telling similar stories to the Twisted or the Silver Eyes trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Silver Eyes trilogy, the cave with the mushrooms and the mascot costumes and the facility with the mascot costumes and even the villain that was in the basement, which was the Mimic stand-in, was not real. Like, it was all just an illusion, and it was done by like light bulbs that were all over the place. It was illusion
Which
light
are
bulbs
in Ruin.
where there is literally light bulbs on a string throughout the cave. And it's like,
I will say I'd been hesitant on the connections you'd been making with the Silver Eyes until that video with Twisted Ones and Ruin. I think that's probably one of your strongest theories.
Thanks.
Because like there's good arguments there. Like I have no rebuttal to what you just said.
Oh,
like
thanks.
yes, straight up, there are a string of light bulbs in a mushroom-filled cave. Like that's practically 1-to-1.
Right.
Hey, Twitter, this one's for you. That's stronger than any Tails connection I've heard.
I've said it. No, I'm not going to say that. But the connections to the Silver Eyes trilogy is super interesting. It is definitely not the same though. Like, please don't clip it out of context. Yeah. Like, the stories are not the same. But the argument
it
of like,
leans on the idea.
Right. The argument of like, these books have to be in the games because what happens in these books looks just like what happens in the games could be applied to the Tales books and the Silver Eyes trilogy. It's like,
yep. And Fazbear Frights to a point.
And
like
Fazbear Frights.
With Into the Pit, like if you look at Into the Pit, it's like, okay, if we are using Tales logic, then it is canon that there are time traveling ball pits.
Right.
Do we want to do this? Do we all play this game?
Right. Right. But yeah, but then that opens the door. If it's like, if it's not an illusion, maybe that is the sister location bunker. Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, the illusion thing is tricky. I think, and kind of going into, and we'll get into this in the question, so I guess I'll save that for later, because I was going to bring up Nightmare Gas specifically in relation to Help Wanted 2, but we'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. We are at 38 minutes, but I guarantee you like 8 of that was us setting up the stream.
Right. Mine says 34, so yeah.
Yeah, so closer to that. I mean, do we want to move on to questions? I'm trying to think if we have any other connections between Security Breach and Ruin to talk about. I guess we could talk about, we've talked about the end of Security Breach. What about the beginning of Ruin? Ooh. How does Cassie get called to the Pizzaplex?
Yeah, that's just a big plot hole, in my opinion. It's like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Like, how did the Mimic know Cassie's name? Like, how did the Mimic even get a connection through a walkie or get a connection to Cassie's house? Like, through
I think
it's
the
like
walkie-talkie, I think that's why they put Gregory's backpack there, because I think that's the only way he gets that walkie-talkie.
Oh, I agree. I saw a theory on Twitter. I don't know who said it, but shout out to you. That
if this is you, at me, I'll retweet.
Please. It was really good, and you actually convinced me. The reason the Mimic has the walkie-talkie, someone said, was because Gregory was using another walkie-talkie to guide the Mimic.
Ooh.
So that's how he got the Mimic to go in there and trap him instead of using himself.
Because I was thinking of the vent, but no, yeah, using that walkie-talkie, that's good. No, that's a good point.
I don't know. That I really, but yeah,
I can see that.
If that's your theory, please tag me on Twitter or something.
That's a good point.
But yeah,
because the only, and this is such a stretch, but the only way the Mimic reaches outside of that basement without the walkie-talkie,
right,
is if we are to believe that the broken security nodes in the main part of that basement, if the Mimic did that, then it could have reached to that monitor in there. Because there is that monitor that controls M.X.E.S.
You're so right.
So if that monitor is in any way connected to the rest of the Pizzaplex, Cassie being in the daycare means her information would be in the system. But then the question is, why would that monitor be connected to the Pizzaplex?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Or how even?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the main reason why I think Cassie's dad was modifying the M.X.E.S machine. Because if he logged into that monitor, then we at least have some kind of connective tissue with Cassie's information and the Mimic.
Right.
Other than that, it could literally just be like Gregory did a typo in his text message to Cassie, and then she ends up at the Pizzaplex.
Right.
Because if it's not that, like, I have no idea why else she's there.
Yeah. We have a theme with these games, these recent games, of like starting in the middle of the story. Like Gregory was already like trapped inside Freddy. We don't know how he got there, and we probably will never know like how he got there.
Yeah, getting in Freddy is weird. I definitely like with GGY and with like context now, I see like why he's so like kind of spaced out at the beginning of the game, like especially if he wakes up like when Freddy does, essentially.
Right.
I could totally see him being like, "Oh, I'm Gregory.
Right.
I'm Gregory." Like that makes more sense in context.
Oh.
But like, why was he in Freddy's stomach?
And why did he wake up at that moment?
Yeah, that's another thing. I totally see security breach getting kicked off because Gregory breaks free of being GGY.
Yes.
But if that happened, why?
Right.
Who beat the Balloon World machine? Right? Like if we are to assume that it works like Princess Quest does, who did that?
Not me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, that's so tough. Yeah, I it's sad because I don't think we'll ever know. Even like the Tales books are done now. And there's a lot of things that we still don't know. And I'm like so scared that we'll just never find out anything. Like the sticky note room. Like
the sticky note room.
It's like, oh, the Mimic and David wrote on multicolored sheets of paper, but like,
but the Mimic's been in the pizzeria basement forever,
right? Like, so it's like the Mimic was there and then traveled all the way to the. It's like,
that's so weird. Because like everything points to the Mimic being the one that wrote the sticky notes. Everything down to the binary, the tails, like everything,
right?
Except for like logic.
Yeah,
like basic logic doesn't work there.
Right. It looks like go ahead.
I'm thinking I could see possibly if Gregory and Vanessa, when they are taken over by Glitchtrap, if that new persona isn't like ready to go and instead more of a blank slate, maybe that was the conditioning room for them. And then when they were ready to be Vanny and GGY, they were released from there. Afton family. I think very clearly Mimic, William, whatever is the controller of this, is trying to recreate the Afton family.
Right. But how does he
I think
know
that
who
that
they
makes
are?
so much sense.
How does he even know like the family life of William Afton? It's like it just doesn't make sense. It's so frustrating. It's like that room seems very much like Mimic starting to learn how to mimic someone or something. Or
100%.
I don't. And then there's like the workstation above that room with the new endoskeleton blueprints, and it's like, okay,
you know, we do have one other location where someone's writing on sticky notes. Gregory's room. Or I shouldn't say Gregory's room like it's canon. The secret daycare room with Balloon World in it.
Those sticky notes are all over.
We do
the
have
place.
drawings on sticky notes.
True.
Especially in Ruin, there's the one still on the wall with like the my best day or whatever, like the birthday party one. So that could be some kind of a link from the silo to that room.
Right. Those little white sticky notes you're saying, right?
Yeah, like the little like the drawings, not necessarily like the DLC shipping stuff like that, but like the drawings of the sticky notes.
Yeah. I there's one of those white sticky notes that says it is drawn to sound. And it's always like bothered me. It is drawn to sound.
What? The MIDI music bed? Like, what are you talking about?
I'm like, the Mimic? It's like, maybe. I feel like I've heard that somewhere in one of the Tales books.
You have.
That the Mimic is.
Not necessarily the Tales books. FNAF 3, the explanation for Springtrap. Those suits are programmed to follow sounds.
Right.
all of them were.
Right. So
were all of them?
Oh, sorry. This is the connection I made. So in Ruin, we find out that the Glamrocks through the cameras are drawn to sound.
Oh, they are.
So it is drawn to sound. It's
all
talking
of them
about,
have been.
Yeah, it's talking about one thing. It is drawn to sound.
Yeah, which one is it at that point?
It's like,
yeah, because every Fazbear animatronic is drawn to sound.
Right. I don't know.
Interesting.
Right. Should we get to questions?
There's so many
no?
questions. Yeah, I guess we can move to. There's so many weird things about security.
I know.
We could be at that all day. I'm like,
Literally.
hey, what about this though?
Literally.
So I guess we'll talk now. Since I kind of touched on it most recently, we'll start with that one. This question comes from Mantis. Him. Thank you for your question. I don't want to seem impatient, but a question that crossed my mind is what comes after Help Wanted 2? Do you think we'll get another free roam like Security Breach, another VR title, or something entirely different? Personally, I could easily see it falling into a pattern of VR game, DLC for that, then new free roam, DLC for that, so on, alternating between VR and non-VR. Of course, that's dependent on how long the series will continue. Thank you for your question. I will say, I think it's too soon for a third VR game, even like one game removed from Help Wanted 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Help Wanted 2 you can get away with because there's enough that wasn't in Help Wanted.
Right.
But after Help Wanted 2 comes out, you're going to need a couple games to justify a third Help Wanted.
Right. I agree. Like Help Wanted seems very much like the bridge to something bigger. Like how Help Wanted was kind of like the... I guess it wasn't a bridge. Help Wanted was a big part of the story of like the newest games. So like part of me is like...
It's the soft reboot. It's like the starting moment of the new story.
Right. Like if you did not play or watch Help Wanted 1, you do not know what's going on. Like in
no,
the
not
story.
at all.
It's like, so part of me is like, oh my God, Help Wanted 2 is probably like not the bridge. Like it's probably going to be a big deal, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't see them concluding the story in a VR game for some reason.
No, I see Help Wanted 2. It's gonna be, it's gonna be a prequel or a sequel. Go figure. It's gonna be either
right.
I think it has to do with one of the characters we have established.
Right.
So I think it's either going to be Gregory's version of Help Wanted. I think it could be what Cassie is going through soon after the basement, but I think that would be the carnival game.
Yeah.
I've also seen it said that it could be it could be Cassie's dad. I've seen that as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. A lot of people have been like assuming that FNAF VR or Help Wanted 2 is going to be like not a VR game and just like another game that is in real life, but it's just a VR game for some reason. I think it's going to be another Help Wanted game. Like I think it's going to be another VR game. I don't think it's like a real... Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think it would make sense to be another VR game. Here's my very spicy take that I don't think a lot of people like or agree with, but I'm sticking to my guns on it. I think, as of right now, I think Help Wanted 2 is not going to tell us very much what's going on.
Right.
It is going to open with that trailer where we're going down the sister location elevator.
Okay.
Then we go into an area,
right.
and then it'll kind of be similar to Help Wanted 1, where it's like a desk in the area, probably like the custom night desk, maybe Circus Baby's desk. I'm not sure.
Right. Circus Baby's desk.
Well, you know, the like little area that we hide under. The one we hide under.
Oh, the circus control.
Yes, circus control.
Yeah.
I think that the meta game going on is we are a Fazbear employee,
right,
who has been sent to collect things for Help Wanted 1. And we have the unfortunate job of checking out the sister location bunker. While we're there, the nightmare gas from the FNAF 4 experiments has already leaked. I think the mini games we're going to be playing in Help Wanted 2 are hallucinations by this poor Fazbear employee trying to retrieve something tangible for Help Wanted. And that something tangible will be the green flashing chip. I think that's Help Wanted 2. I think
you
the
think
very
the
end,
chip in Baby's arm?
The last collectible we get is that little green flashing chip. And
you
then it's
think
like,
that?
Oh, we can leave. I think it's either going to be that or just a basic circuit board. But like, I think the circuit board that starts Help Wanted comes from the sister location bunker, because I don't think it comes from FNAF 6.
You think the green flashing chip thing?
I mean, what other circuit board is there? Like, what other, like, not circuit board, what other, like, scannable piece of technology that could introduce shit to Help Wanted could be, besides something this small?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I made like a final theory before Security Breach. It didn't really, it wasn't anything special, but I really kind of solidified my thoughts on that chip. And if you follow the story of that chip in sister location, we take it off of baby and then we put it into hand unit. And the thing that I think happened was someone went down to the sister location bunker looking maybe for things for Help Wanted 2, and they found hand unit. We were like, we need a narrator for that game. Okay, so we'll just scan the circuit board from hand unit that the chip was plugged into.
To be fair, Help Wanted, the thing that keeps telling you, like, don't look into things, everything's fine, trust me, is the hand unit voice.
Yes, so that was the theory. But yeah, I think that I would lose it. I'm telling you, if anything like that happens with the chip or hand unit, I will.
I'm going to be checking Twitter immediately.
I can't say what will happen on video, but
I have said, and I hold to it, if we see Tiger Rock and Help Wanted 2, I'm doing the Stan Was Wrong song on Twitter. At this point, like, because if I see Tiger Rock in a game, I fully give up and Tails wins. Like, I don't have any explanation for Tiger Rock outside of that.
I don't think that would make me, even if I saw Edwin, the name Edwin, in the games, which I'm so open to. Like, I don't care.
I'm fine if the books are canon. It's not me losing if the books are canon. I just don't think they are.
I think people get so passionate, but like in reality, I really don't care. Like, it's just what I think. Like, if Edwin shows up in the game, sure, okay,
yeah,
whatever. But that won't change my mind about the Tales books. I think. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Where were we? Oh, yes. I think that's a really cool idea about Help Wanted 2. I love that.
Especially the fact that Didophobia comes out like 2 months before the game comes out. So they're introducing Nightmare Gas right before the game comes out.
No, I would not be surprised if Help Wanted 2 is based around the gas and around the FNAF 4 experiments and stuff like that. Would not,
because that would also be a way to introduce it into the game more cohesively as well.
Right.
Because, like, sure, if you read the books, then you're like, oh, FNAF 4 is probably experiments or nightmares based on experiments.
Right.
But if you don't read the books, you can get your way there.
Right.
But it's not super cohesive yet.
Right. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you watched Matt Pat's theory about the Mimics' teeth and the daycare attendant's teeth.
I did see that, yeah.
I think it's interesting that when I played Help Wanted 2 at PAX, but everyone saw the levels. The carousel level
is Sun Moon.
If that is in the sister location bunker, that would mean that they found the daycare attendant in the sister location bunker, and maybe this is how they found the mimic as well.
That's fair. I mean, someone also pointed out Bonka Bon takes place in the Security Breach arcade.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So if that's true, that, to be fair, if the sister location bunker is what we see at the end of Ruin, it is still nearby enough to be plausible.
Yeah, you're right. It just depends if that carousel is in the sister location bunker or the Pizzaplex.
Yeah, because besides that, the only other carousel we've ever seen in the entire franchise is the really dinky one from FNAF 2, which I love, but it's very bad and not the same carousel.
Right.
It also definitely looked almost Fall Fest-esque.
Yeah,
like from what I saw in the video.
So it could have
pumpkin. It reminds me of the Dreadbear DLC.
It could be from that Fall Fest.
Which, again, points to the importance of this Fall Fest. What happened? Was this a real Fall Fest?
Right.
Like,
it's like fall. Wasn't it Fall Fest of '83 or something?
It was, yeah.
It's like I was actually just recently rewatching a bunch of Curse of Dreadbear. I love Curse of Dreadbear, and there's just so much stuff in that game that's like, I don't know. It's so interesting.
Yeah. I think the maze, while frustrating to do, it took me 20 goddamn minutes on one run.
Yeah.
The way you get the Vanny mask in Dreadbear, I think, is really well done.
Right. I agree.
I think that's super solid.
I agree.
Because it's a mystery anyone could figure their way into. Because naturally, when you get one key and it shows up on your flashlight, your brain can go, I wonder if I can get 2.
Right.
And that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as so we got on a tangent. What comes after Help Wanted 2?
Probably another game. I think, like J-Top said in the interview, J-Top from Steelwool, FNAF will end when Star Wars ends. It's like if there's going to be interest in it, capitalism is going to capitalism, and there will still be more games. So
I'm hopeful. Now, obviously, we have no confirmation or information at all on this, but on the Game Jolt interview, I remember they said they would love to do a game earlier in the franchise. I would love to see that. I think Steelwool showed us with Ruin how capable they are of doing like really solid, smaller scale locations.
Yep.
So doing like a Fredbear's and early Freddy's, I think that would be really, really good.
Balloon circus characters, early circus game, something.
Show us Chica's Party World. Make that important.
Oh my God, that would be so cool. If we end up going to like Circus Baby's Pizza World or anything, I would lose my mind. I would love that. Oh, I would love that.
Speaking of, Circus Baby Pizza World closed because of gas leaks.
Right.
Which could have actually happened.
Right. Scott Coffin.
Especially because that same article says people saw weird things at night.
What?
God.
Are you serious?
In the article, I think we all... here, let me pull it up.
Yeah, please pull it up.
At the time, we all were like, oh yeah, they were like moving animatronics out or whatever.
Because...
Let me word for word it for you.
Please.
Gas leak sister location. In other news, the grand opening of Circus Baby Pizza World has apparently, of course it's justified font, double-spaced in the worst font in the world, apparently been canceled due to reported gas leaks in the building. Sources close to the establishment questioned the report, saying that the strange activity... God, hold on.
It's all right.
Question the report. Saying that strange activity around the area at night suggests something else is to blame.
What?
Strange activity around the area at night.
That reminds me of the Twisted Ones.
But also, if there's nightmare gas involved, a raccoon running by could look like some weird monster right outside of
Oh God, it could go so many ways.
It could go so
Did you finish reading
and then
the
rest of that article is just like, everyone was so excited, and then it disappeared one day or whatever.
Did you finish reading the Twisted Ones?
I finished the first chapter.
Okay, great. Well, in the Twisted Ones, basically there's the twisted animatronics running around, and they capture you in their stomach hatches, and they kill you with the spring locks, basically. Yeah. And when the twisted animatronics were running around the town or around the area, they were like, we need to get people inside their houses because they came out at nighttime. The twisted animatronics. They were like, we need to get people in their houses. So a cop ran around and told people there was gas leaks. Yeah. To get people in their houses to avoid the twisted animatronics coming out at nighttime.
Yeah.
It's like,
which also could just be that sister location, the gas leak lie was that people wouldn't be nearby while they moved things out of the location.
True. It could go so many ways.
God.
I think back to
I guess... no, you go because I was going to move on.
I think back to like that Steam post where Scott said that the Silver Eyes trilogy is canon. And I would just die to know what Scott's definition of canon is.
Yeah. I think it's the like semantic debate we've been having recently of the difference between canon and continuity. Yeah. It's got to be that, because if it's not that, like that changes so much.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, if you look up the actual definition of canon, it means same continuity.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
Yeah.
But speaking of nightmare gas and things like that, we have a question from. This one. Yeah. A question from Rayu. Him. Thank you for your question. What's your favorite and also most frustrating in-game universe rule ? Not sure of the right word. Meaning Remnant, Agony, Illusion Disc, Supernatural Stuff, Engineering, Nightmare Gas, just whatever nuance of FNAF's world.
Oh, so wow.
we can, I think favorite's a very quick one. So we'll start there. As far as favorite goes, I think I gotta give it to Agony. I'm very interested.
This is such
in
a
the
weird
idea-
conversation outside of
Oh,
context.
it's so. My favorite is Agony.
Right.
But I think
There's
it's
the
a very
cold open.
compelling narrative to have like emotion so strong it becomes its own being. I think that's really interesting in a narrative sense.
I hate that. That's my least favorite. I don't like that. I don't like the like. I think that's a little too sci-fi for me. I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down with illusion discs. I'm down with illusion gas. I can believe that.
Would
FNAF's
Agony not be more supernatural than sci-fi? I feel like of the two, Remnant would be the sci-fi one, since that's like an actual material.
I don't
you
like
can
Remnant
experiment
either.
with. Fair.
I'm kind of like a old grumpy. I liked the old FNAF person.
I liked it when a ghost was
yeah.
inside of a robot.
I'm kind of like that. Like ever since
Yeah.
Remnant was introduced, I think it made things way more confusing and hard to understand. But I've accepted it at this point. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not like living every day angry about it, but yeah.
So what would your favorite like rule of that universe be then? If you even have one.
A favorite rule of the FNAF universe. Ooh, that's tough.
'Cause if
Because
that's-
all of
if
the
that's
rules
tough-
have to do with like killing. It's like
True. I mean, what's your favorite way to kill a child?
right. It's like I like the stomach hatches.
Yeah. We'll move
I
on
like
to-
the
we'll move
illusion
on to the
stuff.
second half.
I'll say I like
Okay.
I like the illusion discs and illusion gas stuff. I like that.
Okay. So I was gonna say we disagree to a point then, because I think as far as least favorite or thing that's the most frustrating,
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think any of the illusion things we have, any specific one is my least favorite. I think the idea that we have 4 different ways in this franchise to have something shown to the player not be true.
Right.
The fact that there's 4 is my least favorite.
Yeah.
Because we have illusion discs, we have nightmare gas, we have VR/AR shenanigans, and we have indie games.
Yeah.
That's too many.
Yep. Yeah. It's genius for like confusing your audience and getting theories and stuff. And,
Yeah.
Like, but it is a lot, and it's frustrating. It really is. I agree.
I think I would prefer. I think 2 is a healthy amount. Like when it was just illusion disc indie games, I think that's a healthy amount. Or if we did just illusion disc nightmare gas, because
Right.
they each work in different ways.
Yes.
Right,
Exactly.
because indie games is just so they can keep telling the narrative. Illusion discs more so affect people, but they can also somewhat affect robots in a specific way. Whereas like nightmare gas can only affect people. So
Right.
like they all have rules,
Right.
but there's just too many.
Right. I agree. God, you're making me want to change my answer. Yeah, it kind of does suck. Whatever.
I think if it was just illusion disc and nightmare gas, which I like indie games just so that we can kind of move on collectively.
Oh yes. I will say this about the indie games.
Sure.
I'm deciding if it's my least favorite or my favorite. I don't know, but I have strong feelings about it.
Yeah. I think they should have stuck to it a bit more.
Yep. I agree.
But I do appreciate them just straight up saying like, hey, if we get some early lore wrong, we're right. That was now retroactively wrong.
Right. I love the idea of that. I don't like how it was executed. That's what I will say.
I see that. No, I see that. Especially because it wasn't even clear specifically which games were being mentioned.
Right.
No, I see that.
Anyways.
And then as far as I think a healthy amount of illusion things would be just gas and just illusion discs. Because then you have something that can affect robots and people, and you have something that can just affect people.
Right.
And that way you can, with what's being shown, distinct what is what pretty straightforwardly.
Right.
And I guess to be fair, on the bright side, none of them can fully create something completely wrong. Like
Right.
all of them modify what you are actually seeing.
Right.
So
Right.
except for the
So
VR AR
there
shenanigans.
there is something there. It's just not right. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah, except for occipital transponders or whatever the hell.
right. I do think it's interesting that, sorry, this is so off topic kind of, but I think that the AR mask, it's so interesting that when Cassie puts it on, she sees things from her past. Like she sees her hanging out.
Interesting.
She sees Gregory hanging out with her and comforting her, and it's super interesting. I wonder why that happens.
Yeah. I wonder if, because we only really see her memories by the Roxy Salon, like at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I do wonder if that's just, she's been using it so much at that point that it's getting more and more into her own head.
Right.
I can see that.
I don't know.
That's interesting.
Do we have another question?
Okay. We've got 2 more, but we don't have to do all of them.
That's all right. I'm down.
One of them, okay. Actually, we'll do one of them because they're both kind of long.
Oh.
So
I mean, we could do a speed round. I'm down. I don't know. Whatever you want.
I'll let you pick. I'll let you pick.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you pick, and then whoever didn't get answered, I'm gonna specifically blame John for it. So
okay. I love that.
Do you want to talk about something that has to do with FNAF 4 and Sister Location, or something that has to do with FNAF 6?
FNAF 6. We've talked a lot about FNAF 4 and Sister Location.
From Evelyn, thank you for your question. She, her. I have a theory. Now, this is more theory review, but it's something that I think is worth bringing up.
I'm down.
I'm straight up, I do fully disagree with this, but I think it's worth talking about.
No. Okay.
And she prefaces it too. I have a theory I've kind of had floating around that you might hate. I kind of do, but it's valid, and you're valid for saying it.
I'm ready.
But could Midnight Motorist be about Henry Emily's family? I think maybe the window break-in could be Sammy, the son from the novels, since he's referred to as being kidnapped, which wasn't technically confirmed in book, an odd throwaway. There's loose interpretation around there, where like he was kidnapped, but like did he exist? That's loose there. I think it may explain the different colored main character and explain the person in the chair being the elusive Mrs. Emily we never really see, and patch up any other confusing holes. Perhaps Afton was in the suit to take both of Henry's children, and the question ends there. So I will say straight up, I don't think, and again, maybe this is Scott forgetting and just wanted to do a cool scene, I think the rain makes it so a Springlock suit couldn't have been used there.
Agree.
One of the 2, we only know 2 things about Springlock suits, and one of them is you can't get it wet.
Right.
So,
right. So that those footprints had to have been from either a non-Springlock suit that can walk on its own, or an illusion of some kind. Yeah. It's like there's no other option.
There really isn't. There was a moment, and I disagree with it now, but for a while, my theory on Midnight Motorist was that it was in an interpretation where Charlie dies first.
Okay.
So this is getting in the weeds. I am of the opinion that the shadow creatures, Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy, are agony reflections of Charlie and Cassidy's separate wills. Shadow Bonnie for Charlie, Shadow Freddy for Cassidy.
Oh my gosh!
I have a whole like 20-minute video on this topic.
I probably watched
it. Very briefly. It's more so to do with the fact of like what Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie do, right? Because both of them seem antagonistic to William. One of them seems more violent than the other.
FNAF AR.
FNAF AR, because Shadow Bonnie, very violent. It's agony, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's specifically trying to stop you from collecting Remnant.
But you know what's always bothered me?
Sure.
Shadow Bonnie is Toy Bonnie. What?
Exactly, which is weird as hell.
It's just like, I think everyone as a collective group in this community has just been like, okay, like just, we don't even, we're just like, nope, that's just Bonnie.
There's one good explanation for Shadow Bonnie, and it's not canon to FNAF, it's Pop Goes. I think that explanation for Shadow Bonnie is based. There's no other good explanation for it.
It's probably because it's an explanation.
Fair. But if that is true, Charlie dies later that night, we get Midnight Motorist.
Okay.
If Charlie dies, and she is possessing the puppet at that moment, and her agony for some reason coalesces into Shadow Bonnie.
For some reason, okay.
For some reason, because
Because
why else do we have Shadow Bonnie? I'll tell you what, it's not a Springlock suit. I will die on this hill. I don't think the shadow creatures are Springlock victims. I don't think that makes any sense.
okay,
Because it's not like Tori Bonnie wasn't a Springlock. And if they were Springlock suits, like Springlock suit victims, why are they still here helping out? Like, they should have moved on.
Are they
and
helping
just
out?
been agony creatures. I mean, kinda. Shadow Bonnie seems like it's trying to kill, or Shadow Freddy. In my opinion, follow me, right? The only time we see Shadow Freddy do anything. I think Shadow Freddy's trying to get William killed. I think Shadow Freddy's like, somebody come kill this guy.
right.
Which is why I think Shadow Freddy would be Cassidy's reflection, which at least makes more sense since Cassidy's in Golden Freddy.
Holy crap. So how does this tie into Midnight Motorist?
So footprints.
You think it's the shadow?
Only reason I think it's an apparition of either. For a while, there's a moment where I thought it was the crying child reaching out to Michael via Golden Freddy, like
Okay.
appearing,
Okay.
which I think makes more sense.
Yeah.
But also, it could. But something that makes less sense. It could be Shadow Bonnie appearing outside of the window of Charlie being like, "I need to tell someone what happened." Appears outside of the crying child's window.
Uh-huh.
Crying child runs off to Freddy's,
Uh-huh.
sees Charlie.
Uh-huh.
That's what he saw.
Holy
Remember what you
crap.
saw was Charlie.
Holy
Is
crap.
that likely? Not
No.
really. But it's
It's
in the
as likely as
explanation.
my Midnight Motors theory
It's
that I had.
also,
but-
hey, Evelyn, thank you again for your question. It is also as likely as it's Henry Emily's family.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's called Midnight Motorist, the fact that it's a purple car, the fact that it's the same rain as the Charlie death scene.
I think it really has to be William.
I think it has to be William. And also being Sammy Emily, was the theory that Sammy was kidnapped?
Yes. Since Sammy is referred to as being kidnapped.
So in Midnight Motorist, Orange Guy makes it clear that this is a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
That like, oh, he ran off to that place again.
Yeah.
It's like,
Which is why I don't think, spoilers for Didophobia, it's why I don't think it's Rory.
no,
I don't think that
don't
tracks
either.
at all. Because I saw people saying that. I don't think that tracks.
I understand where they're coming from, but
yeah.
I
Like, the kidnapping bit makes sense. Like, the runaway bit, it's the only other confirmed runaway kid.
Yep.
But the family we see, like, described for Rory is
Right.
not the Midnight Motorist family.
Right. I think honestly, at this point, if I had to put money on it, I
Mm-hmm.
would say Matt Pat's explanation for it is the right one. I think
What was that again?
I think it's Michael Afton seeing Golden Freddy's illusion, like he sees in FNAF 1 of like, it's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he follows that and thinks it's his brother and goes to the gravesite of the brother or something like that. I think
Yeah.
I think
that
that's-
does make the most sense.
Yeah.
Like, of any explanation. Because I've been a big time proponent. I don't think the crying child is the runaway. Because
Yeah.
everything we know about the crying child would not say,
Right.
hey, he breaks through windows and runs away.
Right. Exactly. I mean,
No,
He
I
was
think
trapped
that's
in his
probably the
room.
most likely.
he was his dad did trap him in his room and he wanted to get out. He kept banging on the door. So he was like, he did want
Yeah.
to escape his room. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, also that leads into what I thought about FNAF 4, right? Because if that is Michael, he's like, he'll be sorry when he comes back.
Right.
That could be a throwaway line. It could be, I'll put him in a room with no windows.
Yep. The
FNAF
FNAF 4 experiments. I agree. I actually agree with that.
And then also, Williams wants to get back at him for whatever happened to the crying child, so
Right.
on and so forth.
Right. And then it's, I don't know. And then we see Fredbear in FNAF 4. That could be Michael.
Yeah, it could be Michael. It could be how the story mentions that it can mess with your dreams when a ghost is trying to reach out to you.
Ooh, yeah.
The cat
God.
Alone with Myself or whatever.
Yep.
Alone Together.
Yep.
It could be Michael has these dreams, and when the crying child tries to reach out to him, suddenly Fredbear's in these dreams now.
Is that Alone Together?
It's the one with the cabinet.
Oh, yeah. Spoilers.
Which is again in the next book.
Yeah.
But this isn't really spoilers because
Oh,
it's
okay,
like
fair.
just an aspect about the universe.
Right,
You know,
right,
it's
right,
like,
right.
oh, when ghosts try to possess you or try to like
Right.
contact you, these are the steps.
Right.
Which also does back up Cassidy as Shadow Freddy, right? Hear me out. If
Okay.
if Gregory and Cassidy are both in Golden Freddy, and
Okay.
with I think with
Gregory?
Stitch Wraith and with the logbook, I think that makes sense.
Okay. You said Gregory.
Oh, sorry.
Crying
The Crying Child and Cassidy.
Yeah. And Cassidy.
There's too many dead kids in this
Right.
franchise.
Gregory's not dead.
Gregory's not dead yet.
True.
Wait until I
A
get my
question
hands
mark?
on him.
Right.
Yeah. If the Crying Child and Cassidy are both in Golden Freddy, which I think is pretty easily argued, it's not confirmed by any means.
Yeah.
But I think with the logbook, with
People can-
everything we know about Stitch Wraith, I think that tracks.
I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
If the Crying Child, I think that's what we see in FNAF 1, right? The
Mhm.
Crying Child reaches out to him. It's me. Cassidy's also there, sees something that kind of looks like William,
Yeah.
kills him.
Yeah.
With FNAF 4, if the Crying Child is reaching out to Michael in his dreams, and then suddenly his dreams go from nightmares about the animatronics to nightmares about specifically Fredbear,
Right.
I see that being a similar thing.
Right.
But if he's doing that, Cassidy might not be far behind, and that could explain Nightmare,
Dang.
which would back up Cassidy's agony being Shadow Freddy.
Oh, right.
It's
Toast.
weird. And you know what? It's an hour 14 on my end, which is probably like an hour 04. Do you want to hit that last question?
Sure, let's go ahead. I'm down.
This is from Flaffity. Thank you for your question. She, her. Is there a possibility? Now, this is going into a sister location in FNAF 4. It's something very interesting. I saw this. I don't know how I feel about it, but I think it's worth like brainstorming.
Okay.
on. Is there a possibility that more than one person is talking to the Crying Child through the Fredbear Plushes?
Oh.
Ennard knows of the office, implying that the other animatronics would know of it as well. Wasn't William working one of the days Fredbear talks to him? What makes me think this is FNAF World. The regular Fredbear and the glitchy one, both giving the player, who we do play as could be a topic too, missions to accomplish. It seems like FNAF World style secrets to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for your time. But it is interesting that possibly the explanation for William being on screen and then hearing from the Fredbear plush is that someone else was using that office. Which, like, I don't like it, but it's possible.
But Ennard wouldn't have been a thing at that point.
True, but any of the Fun Times who have voice copying capabilities are.
And it was connected
to
Funtime Freddy's room.
It was Freddy's room, wasn't it?
Funtime Freddy has the voice mimic.
God. Oh no.
Yeah.
I forgot about the fact that he has voice mimic and it's literally his room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is unfortunately possible. And it would also make sense that Freddy would be talking through a Fredbear thing, because like bear, you know?
Right. He's like, oh, that's a bear.
That's me.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Holy
But then also the
moly.
question would be why?
Right.
Because this would be probably even before the Remnant experiments. This would have just been Fun Times at that point. If Crying Child was alive.
I think it's Occam's razor. I think it just
is William.
It's just William.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say, and I think this also goes against it being multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting more and more convinced by the day that the minigames in FNAF 4 is just somebody going through experiments. I don't think any of that is the actual real
I
world.
saw that theory.
Because, like, I mean, it's mapped out on the sister location breaker room. It would explain why there's Fredbears in seemingly fantastical places that don't make any sense. It would explain why the children are just stationary and you walk up to talk to them. And it would explain why Fredbear always knows what's going on, even though it's mainly just an audio system.
So that would mean that all of the kids we see Afton in Fredbears. All of the kids talking about Fredbears, Michael and his friends were also there as well.
I would be arguing that anything that's not the Crying Child
Is not real.
Is some kind of standee or something like that with nightmare gas induced into it.
So
Granted,
that would mean the Crying Child never got bit.
That's the one problem with it, is the bite. Because I don't see that being part of the experiment, unless it's not the crying child going through the experiments, but it's William recreating it to learn more about it and also torture Michael.
Oh my god.
So there's a possibility, right? FNAF 4 minigames did happen, but then William made experiments based off of them. But then we go into why. Hey, why you do that?
Right. And then there's really no proof except for the map of sister location that he conducted those experiments with other kids, like especially going to Fredbear's in the house and Michael's in the house.
Yeah, and then Michael also messes with that too. Like Michael just being there scaring him like, why are you doing that?
Right.
So it's one of those theories that like the more you pick at it, the looser it comes. But it's something that I'm like, it's like we've been saying, it's unfortunately possible.
Yeah. And I just like, and so many things are possible. And like I hear people say all the time, like, the story of FNAF is actually really simple if you think about it. It's like,
no,
here's my list of 87,000 questions that you could answer for me.
It's literally I'm gonna look it up to make sure it's the right thing. It's literally the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where it's the more you know about a topic, the more you know you don't know. Where like the confidence of your knowledge versus the knowledge you have, it spikes at the beginning, and then it tanks, and then it very slowly comes back up.
Yep, exactly.
You know?
I think, like,
if someone is so certain that the story is so simple and straightforward, that tells me they're still here, or they're a god and they know everything.
Right.
You know?
Right. It's like, I would love for you to answer all these questions that I have. If you know,
I'm comfortably in the middle of like the bottom of my confidence because I'm like in the middle of my knowledge.
Yep. I like, I don't know. Do you think Scott will ever come out with like a book explaining everything or no?
I wish. I think at best we get like an archives game at the very, very end of the series where we just get like a tight paragraph about like every character. And that's the best we get.
Right.
Because anything more than that, I don't see happening at all.
Right. I think Scott knows that once the mystery goes away, people stop caring.
Yeah.
In general. People will still care, but
it would go from like a getting multi-deal brand kind of game to a fun game, like a couple 100,000 people play.
Right.
You know?
Right. Which is still great. But capitalism. So
he's got to pay for those like 12 kids he has or something. He's popping them out. Hey, good on you. I've got 2 kids and counting. I get it.
Oh gosh. I have this plushie and this plushie and that one.
I have this plushie and this plushie.
So you have multiple kids. Lots of kids.
True.
Anyways, did you make those lights green on purpose? For like green is Charlie?
No, I totally
meme?
forgot.
Great.
I don't know. They're blue. You're crazy.
Oh, blue and green.
They've been blue this whole time.
Oh, you mean
no?
Elizabeth.
They've just been blue.
Blue is Elizabeth, right?
They've been red this whole time, dude.
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
Right. That's the color of the M.X.E.S, for sure.
They've been purple this whole time.
Oh, well, that's not connected.
Now
to
that's
anything.
worse. That's worse.
Right.
No, they've been like that the whole time. Gaslighting isn't real. You're crazy.
Exactly.
Gas? So once again, folks, thank you all for coming.
Right.
This has been, if you have any questions or theories or possible collabs that you wanted to reach out, the email is Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast @gmail.com. Link is in the description. This podcast is on YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Anywhere you get your podcasts, really. I also have an RSS feed. I don't know if you can listen to that directly. I've been trying to get this on like Castbox or like a non-music podcast app. It's surprisingly difficult. Spotify's like, yeah, come on, upload here. And then you go to Castbox and they're like, we'll think about it.
Right.
So I'm like, I wonder why your app is dying, but we'll get there when we get there. Thank you again, John, for joining us. Is there anything specifically you want to shout out before we get to the end of the podcast?
Subscribe to Rye Toast and watch all of their videos.
Well, thank you. Also, keep an eye out I mean, FNAF you were doing a live stream. Would you like to talk about that? It's coming up.
Yeah,
shout that out.
I'm doing a live stream with the Living Tombstone, the regular Sauce, and all of the cast of FNAF Security Breach, the voice actors. So that's on Halloween at 1 p.m. EST. If you want to come on my channel and ask a question, maybe I'll ask your question. There you go.
You should totally do that because I'll be in the chat. I'll tell you that.
Really?
Much. I'll be watching.
Thanks.
Of course.
Thanks.
I mean, to be fair, it's 1 p.m., so I think I can pull it off. I was worried it was going to be in the evening because then I would have to catch it after the fact because Halloween's my anniversary. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we got married on Halloween. It makes it makes some parties a little hard to go to sometimes.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's only going to be like an hour and a half, so don't worry about it.
I mean, regardless, it's 1 p.m.
Yeah.
So I can do that. Anyway, I'm super excited for that for you.
Thanks.
And I can't wait to see it. I'm sure everyone in the audience, I'll be in your walls if you don't go there.
Stop. It's fine. You don't need to.
Anyway, so, but thank you all again for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. I hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.